really from the time I can remember anything, and I can't really remember anything from my childhood other than I was obsessed with like sexiness and like boobs and like, this idea of like the adored feminine, everyone kind of like drooling at her feet. Um, but also being raised kind of like in a conservative Italian, like religious family, it was not necessarily easy to feel like any of those feelings were okay, I guess. And it's not that like my parents are like super strict. It's just those are the values that they were raised with also. It was just kind of how life was.
Hey everyone, my name is Sarah and welcome to Her Ascension Story, the podcast that proves the world is transformed by every hero's personal adventure. Here we talk about the real and the raw things that we should all be talking about more. So if you want to be a part of the movement of getting real about the deeper, more meaningful things about life, be sure to subscribe and follow and get ready to get real. My hope is that this platform inspires you to explore and expand new empowering beliefs about yourself so you can make your own impassionate impact too. And those three pillars, inspiration, independence, and impact, aren't just the premise for this podcast, but for my work too. If you want to check out that more, be sure to go to herascensionstory.com or check me out on social media at Her Ascension Story. Welcome back, everyone. Today with me I have Nadia Caterina, who loves nature and making every experience thoughtful of the earth. She believes that we live in a strange way in the world, especially when it comes to sexual suppression for women. She really embodies her values through performing her sexuality and her groundedness in her life, and I'm so excited for this conversation that we get to share with you guys today. So Nadia, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Same here. I really love the work that you do, especially embracing the divine feminine aspect with taking up energetic, sexual, physical, and emotional presence.
Yeah.
Were you always like that, or how did you get to be in the space that you are now?
I guess I have to admit, I have always been maybe like hypersexual or like hyper aware of my sexuality. I've really from the time I can remember anything, and I can't really remember anything from my childhood other than I was obsessed with like sexiness and like boobs and like, this idea of like the adored feminine, everyone kind of like drooling at her feet. But also being raised kind of like in a conservative Italian, like religious family, it was not necessarily easy to feel like any of those feelings were okay, I guess. And it's not that like my parents are like super strict. It's just those are the values that they were raised with also. It was just kind of how life was. But I've definitely been giving them a run for their money as far as like what they're comfortable with. But yeah, it's kind of always been me, but really just this past year, I've been really public about being unabashedly myself. It's been really fun. It's also been really hard, but yeah, it's definitely everyday adventure.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. So you said that it's kind of been hard to really publicly,
Mm-hmm.
you know, be authentic and really embrace and express your true self. But has it been hard, not just for the last year, but all through your life? Or like, have you gotten
Definitely.
negative feedback or anything like that?
Well, I would say now in this point in my life, and like probably for the last 10 years, I've just become really comfortable in my own skin. And, and that wasn't always there. Like I said, like it's taken some time to like really own myself. And when I went to college, just like almost everyone else that goes to college, I gained a lot of weight and I was an athlete. So I really didn't have a lot of body fat, but the physique that I had didn't feel sexy for me. And I felt really low. So gosh, where did we start this? Because sometimes I can go off on tangents. So yeah, like, as women, we're told like, hey, this is sexy, right? Like super curvy body, like big boobs, tiny waist, giant ass, tiny feet, um delicate tiny hands and delicate little arms, and like that isn't me now, and it never ever has been me, because that's just not, I'm not built like that, and some people are, and it's cool, but everyone is really built differently. So I think initially too, on like this voyage of like loving myself and my sexual power, I had to kind of release of those like norms of like what I thought sexy was, and like kind of understanding what my sexy is. And there's no book on that. Like no one has like a book about like how Nadia can be sexy, um but then also just like believing that and feeling that truly like within every like pore and cell of my body, because there's a lot of things that our mind has to fight socially against that. So yeah, I think it's a challenge for all of us, women, or really men too. No one's got it easy, but for women, I think too, especially.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's, ever since the 1950s, where you have to be the perfect housewife and wear your pearl necklace and look perfect when your husband comes home and have the dinner cooked, and just all of that conditioning that kind of was drilled into society,
Yeah.
and how disempowering it was for women that we have to like have that approval in order to be worthy
Yeah.
and to fit in the box and all of that stuff. And
See, that's
I
kind of
know,
like, sometimes I feel super contradictory to myself, and I always have to catch like what words I put out there, because I want women to feel strong. But I actually love that. I love the 1950s, which actually it's more the 40s, because the 50s they invented like TV dinners and stuff. So housewives got
oh
to
yeah.
slack off. They got vacuum cleaners. but but I do love that idea. Like that's kind of how I was raised, and it makes me feel weak that I love having dinner for my husband, or like washing laundry, or like ironing our dinner napkins. Like sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so, it feels really contradictory to the message I'm putting out there. But I guess I have to remember that the message I'm putting out there is for like the person to be themselves, and so it's kind of fun. But there's another like mental hurdle too, so
Yeah, well, definitely. And that's not me saying like it's like,
oh yeah, no, but
well,
because I agree
oh, go
with
ahead.
that statement too. Because I know what you're saying. I'm not in a box,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm myself.
definitely. The way that the way that I see it, it's like the world at one point was definitely like
Yes.
every society was almost, it was a matriarch, and
Yes.
then it got switched, over thousands of years. And so I think that
Yeah.
in my mind, that's when when you have like the 50s and the
Mhm.
60s with the birth control movement and
Mhm.
everything, and like how women's choices over their bodies were really controlled by men, like a vast
Right.
majority. Like women had to go into like alleys, not literally, well, sometimes, but
Yeah.
like these sketchy bedrooms and like these weird apartments to have abortions and stuff,
Yeah.
and just everything. But yeah, like, so where I was coming from was that we had to, like, as women, go through this ancestral line of
Yeah.
like being empowered and then being disempowered, and now like we get to experience both dualities. We can be the homemaker and we can be the sexy wife and like
Yeah.
the femme fatale and whatever we want to be.
Right.
But yeah,
In
definitely.
some ways, I feel like it's even harder, because there are so many options. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's kind of strange, but I love the challenge of like having to define it for ourselves now, because it's been 100 years since like female liberation and like getting the vote and like being considered equal as a man. And I think it's like definitely about time that we like get over this whole like female nipple problem.
Oh my
um
gosh,
you
yeah.
know but yeah, it's come a long way, and I get, we us women, like, we get to redefine what it is for ourselves, or individually, and I think it's a great place to be a woman right now.
Absolutely. And actually, if I can refer back to our little conversation before we started recording,
Mhm.
how we were talking about labels and how like they help us understand people and what people do, but how you said they aren't necessarily able to define somebody in the same way, the same label,
Mhm.
or meet their authenticity in the same way. And I think that's
Right.
a really good example of how every woman has to define themselves. You can have this label and it doesn't necessarily mean shit. I mean,
Right.
it does, but you can have 1,000 labels and they can all contradict each other.
Right.
But
Because we are
it's,
a
yeah.
thousand labels of contradiction. But that's like, I think that's what's so cool about every individual human is kind of like figuring out, just who they are and how they move through the world. But yeah, it's, oh man, sorry. Talking to you is really easy. I
Well,
feel like it's
awesome.
easy to get off topic.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, yeah, no, it's cool.
But it's so true. And even I think that in today's society, because of this even more so grandiose liberation movement that women are going through,
Right.
equal pay and everything,
Yeah.
how we can have so many different labels in one lifetime and we can just completely dismiss or erase labels from ourselves. Like when I was going through college, I could have been labeled as an alcoholic and a partier and a
Yeah.
quote unquote whore or anything
Right.
like that.
Right.
And but you go into like your 30s, 35, 40s, and you're just a wine aficionado.
Right.
And you love your sexuality. And it's really insane how we're kind of put on a spotlight as women too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, gosh, talk about contradictions because what we've been like conditioned to understand what it means to be like the perfect woman. Oh God, I forget that video that came out maybe just a year ago. Ooh, crap, I might text it to you later. But it was this video about like the expectations of women, like be curvy, be thin, be muscular. You look so buff. Like, did you lose weight? Have you gained weight? Like, and there was just all of these like phrases that like don't be a pussy, and like be perfect, and but like what perfect meant was constantly contradicting itself, and it didn't really leave any room for like a normal human. And so I think, yeah, as women we are conditioned to like be very confused about what we are supposed to and not supposed to do, especially because this isn't the 20s. It's not quite as black and white, and I wonder if it ever was then. But it's, you have to, we don't know what perfect is anymore. It's been totally exploded. And now we're in this place of like being a female or female identifying, or, born this way, but feeling this way. And it's a great and scary place. It's kind of like the renaissance of sexuality. I feel like that's where we're at.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so let's continue on to this renaissance of sexuality.
Yeah.
And so you said that, it's not just women or anybody
Yeah.
that is trying to be sexy that has like these struggles with their body of loving them, at least in one point of their life or another. So,
Mm-hmm.
how did you personally help yourself love yourself and feel sexy, even when you didn't?
Yeah, I actually wrote a blog about this. And I have to say, and I really hate it when people are like, just choose, just do it. But I did. I made a decision one day, like when I was really uncomfortable with my body, that I wanted to feel comfortable with myself. And I'll try to like not make this 10 years long, but like when I was an athlete, I was a pole vaulter. We were just like super buff machines, right? And I didn't love my like super strong fit body. It was hard to appreciate. And before I even went to school, my sister was a ballerina and she gained her freshman 15 and she came back. And I was like, I've always been a really skinny twig all my life. We all were. So she came back and she was larger. and I cried. I was like, oh, Todd, like your body is so, it's like ruined, you know? And I'm like 13 at this time, so please forgive me. But I was like so upset for her body, and she like did the best big sister thing ever, but she kind of just laughed and she just looked at me and she was like, Nod, this is not my forever body, you know, like this is just what I am right now. And she's like, besides, I've been a skinny ballerina like all of my life. I'm really enjoying this shape. It's fun. And like she kind of already planted this seed for me when I started having my own body image crises, or like down days, that a body was transformative. And especially that I'd had this body that I didn't really love for so long, like probably a decade. It was hard to remember that bodies can be transformative. And I remember being in my room like sophomore year in college, and like I was really scared to be naked alone. And I was assaulted my freshman year, and that might have contributed to that. I wouldn't totally blame the assault on that. I think there's a lot going on when you're young in that age of life. But I was really scared to be naked, and I wanted, because I had this like huge sexual frustration at the time, but like I just was super hypersexual, and I was like, this is a contradiction about myself I want to figure out. And so I really had some long talks with myself in the mirror, and like decided that I wanted a healthier mindset towards my body, like body, mind, and soul kind of a situation, which I didn't even know that those words existed at that time either. But it started with taking a shower and not taking so long between stepping out of the shower and getting dressed. And kind of like when I would get into my bedroom, because I had roommates, but when I would get into my room and lock the door, like make up excuses to kind of remain naked. And like, oh, well, I will fold the laundry, and then after laundry, then I can finally put a pair of underwear on. I mean, this was a long journey. Like, a lot of my friends have always known me as like sexually brave and like blunt and forward, but they forget or don't know that I had to go like also seriously coach myself every day. And I would like take like naps with like, I would have my towel on, I would get under the like covers and then like take my towel off, but like take naps naked. So I was like extending my literal time of being naked and like being comfortable that way. And that that was maybe like 2009, and I kind of just kept doing that over and over, so that eventually I could like with roommates clean the house in a t-shirt and my underwear, or eventually like a sports bra in my underwear, to now where like I have, you know, a partner and I feel completely comfortable walking around naked all the time. And if my neighbors like accidentally see my skirt blow up, I'm not like so ashamed about it. Like it went from like some really major baby steps to kind of still practicing that every day mentally, but knowing that like this is the life that I want for myself and with my body. And that is the journey. That is the journey right there. Whew, sorry.
Oh no, that's amazing. I love that. I think that body love in general is such a huge thing in society right
Yeah.
now that a lot of people are struggling with. And so if you
Yeah.
could offer somebody that's listening to this right now that's kind of struggling with loving their body for either this reason or that reason, what would you tell them?
I guess just like forgive your body for responding to life in this way. The body is a lot more complicated than just what we eat or how much we exercise. There is a lot of mental health that goes along with it. And I'm not saying that like if you look this way or that way, it's because your mental health is low. It could definitely maybe contribute. I'm not a therapist, I'm just a normal person. But what I mean to say that like it's very complicated. So forgive yourself, and um, honor if you have cravings or don't have cravings, and I think if you like listen more to the subtle body, which maybe those words don't even make sense, like I think you can be really rewarded. And maybe the figure that you have physically is not what you want, but I think there's a great opportunity to have a kind of a body that nobody else has. And I think that is so cool. So I guess that's what I would say. Like, your body is so fucking cool and no one else can have that. And that's what I think everyone should just love. It's so unique. So.
That's amazing. I love that. And you're also so right about the mental health thing, because I've practiced and I've taught integrative therapy for almost 5 years now. And one
Yeah.
of the basis is that our atoms, like, we break our bodies down to an atomic level, and inside these atoms are vastly empty space, and that's where pretty much our energy, our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, our memories, our traumas, our experiences, that's where we store them.
Yeah.
And if we don't clear those out, we don't process, we don't integrate the lessons from them, we don't move on from them,
Yeah.
then they literally just stay there. And I'm
Right.
not saying that that's how fat gets built up
Right.
or how stretch marks happen,
But it is
or
how
anything like that.
energy gets stuck, for sure, which is worse than like fat or cellulite or stretch marks.
Absolutely, because when you have this stuck energy, you feel it. Like, you feel it on a physical level, and then if you don't take care of that, eventually it does manifest into physical form through either gaining weight. A lot of women, especially women, store their emotions. Like, and men too, everybody does this, but
No,
we see it a
women do
lot with women.
scientifically. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
so
read this somewhere.
yeah, we shove our emotions down deep, and they literally end up in our hips.
Yeah.
And it gets stored as fat. And granted, like, you can go into the biological reasons for storing fat on your hips is for childbearing and fertility and all of that good stuff. But yeah, so like, even just going into yoga and doing some yoga poses for like hip opening, like you just clearing that out, like it's just really amazing.
I definitely.
And you can.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I'm so excited.
Oh, I was just gonna note real quick. Like, I love being in frog pose or some hip opener like that, and you literally like feel this tingling sensation, and then after, like, if you're doing yin, after a few minutes, that sensation leaves the body, and then you get up like after class, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I feel like so much lighter. It's because you release all of that stuck energy, and yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're so right though. And like, I think it's kind of corny, but like really releasing emotion just like that, like in a yoga pose, like, and I teach yoga too, and I'd be like, hey, if anyone feels like crying in like this frog pose or whatever, and sometimes I, even when I'm saying it, like, not that I'm saying it unauthentically, but like, even I'm just like, I don't really feel that. But lately I've been like allowing myself to cry with those like weird tiny physical releases, and it's really helpful. Like, it's maybe you're weird, I don't know what that talk about labels, like, I don't know what that would be categorized in, if anyone needs a category for that, but it definitely feels good.
Oh my gosh, it's probably definitely weird, but I am 1000% guilty for crying in yoga class.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. I have been. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was in a yin class, and it was the first one that I went to a studio in maybe like 4 months, because I was going through, like, I was moving around and everything. So I finally found like a home studio. And I went to the yin class for the first time, and they had Christmas lights on and music playing, and there were two teachers going around just like literally layering sandbags on top of you. And it was so amazing. And so I experienced like all of these emotional releases, because of course I sent the intention before class to do exactly that. And then I was practicing with this one Sanskrit mantra, and I was practicing it with this song in particularly, and that song just happened to come on, and all of a sudden my eyes were waterfalls. I just completely lost it, and I was like crying for 10 minutes straight, and I was like, I don't care who hears me. Obviously I wasn't like sobbing, but
Yeah.
I was definitely sniffling and
Oh,
everything. It was amazing though.
oh, that's
It's
so
definitely weird, but
powerful.
it's so healing. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Like definitely like we definitely store a lot in the body, and I think if we could just like be vulnerable, talk about like things to practice daily. Ugh. But if we could just like kind of be like quote unquote weak or vulnerable more often, I think we would be happier, more relaxed, and more honest with our feelings, which I think, again, maybe it sounds a certain way to certain ears, but I think those things have a truth to them for sure. So, uh, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's life changing when you can do that. You can look at everything and everyone and every experience that you encounter with that same honesty and vulnerability and authenticity and courage.
Yeah. I know we were talking about earlier about how women hold on to weight, and um, I've read somewhere that that is true because like there is so much kind of like social baggage that goes into a woman's body. And I don't know if there is science behind this, but again, this is like something I've done with my brain, is just kind of like it's one of those like forgiving the body as it does change. And I actually like give myself a range between like 115 and 125 pounds. Like I've decided that's my happy weight, you know. That's where I normally am without having to like really think about eating or not eating or whatever it is. And I think if we could like also just like forgive our body for gaining or losing weight sometimes, but then also again it's more about like the feeling, and like as women like really just like let it go, any kind of like standards like in the mind, letting it go, because like we were saying with like that like sacral chakra, like it holds on, and I think that's a powerful mental tool that definitely displays itself physically, just like really let it go. And that's why men, because like men's minds are more quadrant, and that's why men can like gain or lose weight like crazy, because like they don't have like social emotional attachments to their weight, so they don't have to like hold on to that baggage. So anyways, that is like a tool that I have used as far as weight feelings. But I just think that's important. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely important to know that. I'm so happy you did. I really like that idea. And so how have you personally, and how would you recommend people to be able to help themselves let go?
Yeah. I think it's like how I said earlier, just like really just like looking at yourself, maybe in the mirror, because that's really helpful, especially if you're a visual person. But like having a conversation with yourself in a capacity, and just say like, hey, this is it. Like, this is my body. That's my body. This is what we've got. I'm just going to like say to myself today, okay, I'm fine with this. This is how I am. And then like through every interaction, like I don't like dieting is also the wrong word, because everyone's dieting, even if they're not eating, that's a diet of
Mm-hmm.
not eating. So this word of diet, I don't do that either, the diet with like 30-day diet, like I don't follow. I like explore different diets, which means like Mediterranean or like Indian or like Chinese or Thai. Like I explore different diets, and what I discover through that process is that my body responds differently to different foods. And so throughout my life, I like find I crave certain things and not certain things anymore. Um, Maybe a lot of that attributed to also being gluten free, and just kind of like looking at that Krispy Kreme box and being like, well, I can't have it. You know what I mean? But I think it's
Yeah.
more than that, because I definitely have a sweet tooth and I'm a pastry chef, so it's don't be fooled there. There's plenty of things that I eat that are not healthy. Um, but um, it's really just like learning. learning your body and getting intimate through food, through exercise, different forms of exercises, and really just that initial, like, just saying, like, this is my body and I'm going to take care of it in the best way I can. Um, and really actually like doing some effort. And if you're tired, or if you like have to get fast food, like forgiving, like totally, like don't give a shit, enjoy that burger, enjoy the ice cream, enjoy laying on the couch, and also enjoy taking long walks. Like just come through life with like an intention of like, I enjoy playing with my body and with myself, and that has been true my whole life. So if it needs to rest, I just say, great, this week I'm going to be super lazy and I'm going to love it. And then I'm like, this week I need to work really hard, and I'm going to really like, feel strong at the end of it, or whatever, like get these projects done. And I guess I just try to go in with a little optimism, and I think that just really helps boost, because it is hard. There's mentally low days, there's days that you're tired and you're wondering when your last tired day is going to be, but trying your best and like trying to choose those best things for you. And if they don't feel the best, then just saying like, fuck it, I don't care, like that's me, that's what I need right now, and I'm going to do it. So yeah.
Yes, 1,000 times yes. I think that it's so important to really emphasize the human experience. And I mean, you hear the cliche, the quote all the time, you're not a body, you're a soul that has a body.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it feels like it's almost negating the physical experience of
Yeah.
being alive on earth. Like you're a soul, yeah, don't get me wrong, but and spirituality is so amazing, but part of spirituality is experiencing how it feels to be a
You're
soul
right.
in a body and to have that physical experience. And so the body gets so left out and jaded
Yeah.
and shaded all the time.
Right. Like just because you have a certain body type doesn't mean that spiritually or emotionally or like as a personality that you should feel like you can't do any of those things. Like everyone has the same amount of ability, really. And if there's something that you want an ability for, then like go get it. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's what I mean about like every body is so cool and so unique, because I am just astounded sometimes, like seeing certain bodies perform or be or do or exist. And I just think it's like incredible. I just think it's so cool. So, yeah.
Oh, totally. So I want to ask you a little bit of a taboo
Mm-hmm.
question, but I hope everyone listening, I mean, at this point, it's going to be like what, episode 12. So people are just kind of used
Yeah.
to it by now. But if you're a first time listener, then just hop on the train because we're just going straight to like taboo
Yeah.
town. So how do you think that sex can be a spiritual and a sacred experience? Because this is something that I love. I think that it's so important for us to not just, first of all, have sex as a taboo
Mm-hmm.
topic, but sex is something that's also like negatively
Mm-hmm.
charged. Like our sexuality is so strong and so creative. It's that sacral chakra. Like why would we deny such a big part of our bodies? But yeah, so I want to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. So having always been very sexually charged, even from a young age, just like hyper aware of it, like not being able to wait until the day I could finally like have sex, you know what I mean? I, though having sex is a very like deep and can be like very spiritual, I never approached sex or sexuality as anything to be put on a pedestal. um Kind of like the same way I'm not going around saying like I've been breathing for this long, or like I breathe like this. But not to say that like breath work isn't a fun thing to experience, to learn about, to share. And just like food, like like I don't really make a big, I eat a certain way, I don't, and I have very like big intentions around my food, but I also am not like ashamed of how I eat, or feel like embarrassed by the way I eat or how much I eat or how much I don't eat. And I really approach sexuality that way too. I've always just felt this understanding with my body that sex is something I want it to be as something as regular as eating and breathing in my life. I don't want it to be, let's probably taboo. Like I didn't want it to be a thing. And so I was very promiscuous, you may say. And I didn't really feel ashamed about it because it felt really fucking good. So like I knew I was supposed to feel bad about having sex, but I didn't at all. Which also kind of made me feel bad because I'm like guilt is kind of like some of my driving forces. But but then as I had a lot of sex, I realized too that that exchange is energetic. And it's kind of a falsity. I don't know if that's a word. It's this false idea to believe that when you have sex with someone, nothing happens because there's a lot of energy exchange. And you can think about it kind of like in a chi, like a feng shui kind of an energy. You could think about it scientifically, like literally fluids and skin cells exchanged and changed, and there's something that happens there, and that something is worth acknowledging. I think it's a really powerful thing, and I don't think, kind of just like we were saying, like just because you have a certain physical body doesn't mean that like spiritually you're handicapped or personality wise you're handicapped. And I think sexuality is like that too. How was I linking that? Oh gosh, human brains. But yeah, so there is an energy exchange, and it doesn't have to feel taboo, but I think it is worth acknowledging in your own kind of way. And I think sex is really fun and really cool, and to negate any part of that experience kind of like negates the whole reason you're doing it, which is like it feels good and it brings you closer and it releases chemicals. So I think you can look at it both ways, very pragmatically, like getting a job done, but I think also pragmatically to deny that something wasn't done is false. And I love that about sex too. You can make it a big deal or you cannot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So, how does your sexual charge empower you in your life?
Um, Gosh. Well, because of this, like my epitome dream is this like woman that men and women are just like dropping to their knees and like drooling all over, um it's it's powerful, right? To have this kind of like command over people. And my husband is an artist, and I learned from him that if you look at art through the ages, whoever is nude in that art is the one in power, is the one in control. And that's often why you don't see naked women, and why there's a lot of suppression still, I believe, for the female nipple, for instance, because power is being taken away by taking away like our ability to be equally nude as a man. And so I kind of exercise my sexuality through like lingerie modeling or just like nude modeling. Um, um, and I feel powerful because, I mean, yeah, you get comfortable with a photographer, but to some extent, there is some like maybe sexual tension, maybe some like woohoo, like nakedness, like kind of feelings, like and not in a taboo kind of way, but because like the naked body is exciting, it is powerful, it is sexual, like it's not that I have creepy photographers or like we just can't grow up, or whatever. Like it's because those parts are real with nudity and female nudity, because gosh, the curves and angles of a woman's body are gorgeous. Like, I have yet to see an ugly naked woman still, you know, like I haven't found one yet, or clothed, you know, like, and yeah, where were we going with this? What was our question?
How your sexual charge empowers you in your
Yeah,
life.
so being naked is a powerful thing, and I think just like the more it comes from a really playful nature too. Um, so especially in an intimate space by yourself, like you don't have to share it with anyone, you know, which is a really cool thing about your sexuality. It could be 100% for you. Generally, if you have a partner, it might be really kind and fun for that partner to also experience that. And I think there's a really cool experience with like growing with your partner as well. But yeah, sexuality could be a very private thing too. And for me, it's all fun, and it's fun being naked. And like I mentioned earlier, like that is not something that happened overnight, but it is. I don't think you could ever like regret an experience of exploring yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so, I mean, why would you deny yourself a chance to connect with yourself deeper, right?
Right? Yeah. Like,
And get to know
well,
yourself
it's
more.
scary, you know, and I think a lot of people are afraid to dive in because you have to admit things like, maybe I don't love my bunion, okay? I don't love it. Like, it sucks sometimes. But you know what? It's a part of my body, and I actually kind of think it's sexy. Like, you know what? Sorry, I said it. Like, but it's just like, because having those conversations with yourself are uncomfortable, and it's sometimes easier to avoid them than to have them even with yourself, you know? Um,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
definitely. Oh man. Okay, so I do have to ask. So you mentioned um, how being naked and having that sexual charge and just letting that be fluid and flow from
Mhm.
you feels very much like you're in power and like you have like that command over people who see
Mhm.
it. So, do you, this is a two-part
Yes.
question because, and it's just something that I'm curious about. So, do you feel like some people abuse that power and it's kind of more of just like you have to abuse it in order to understand it and then kind of integrate it? And then the other question is, how do you feel about the people who, how do I word this correctly? Like you said, like, not that you have like a creepy
Mhm.
photographer or one that can't grow up, but those viewers that are kind of creepy and can't grow up. How do you deal with that?
That is a question I want to ask other women who do this too almost weekly. So I was really, when I started this whole kind of like public thing, though this has really been part of my personality forever, um, I was worried about that. And part of this journey is also like to write a book. And like, it's kind of funny because this book, I want it to be images of like nudity, or, you know, lingerie or whatever, but like a woman, you know, or a femme who is acting strongly through her sexuality. But I also want every photo to come with an essay of a story of that empowerment, because I am terrified of being misunderstood, to be labeled as those labels of whore or slut, you know, because those are kind of negative, like concubine to me, and like that kind of seems powerful. Or like courtesan,
Nice.
like those seem like kind of powerful words, but it's like those negatively like charged like whore words that I'm afraid of people feeling. And you know, it's kind of a battle because I want to be like sexy, but I also don't want to be like sexy for anyone else. So even if I'm doing like the hip hop thing, which I really try to avoid, but you know what, in a camera and in a photo it looks really good. um
Mm-hmm.
so it looks really fucking sexy, so I battle with that myself, like not trying to fall into this habit, so that like, sorry to be broad, but like a creepy man, you know, I don't want that response. But you know what, I decided I want this photo to be taken like that because it looks good, so I made my choice there and I did the best I could. And I can't tell you, I actually just wrote a blog also about this because it's so freaking frustrating sometimes. Like how many times at like 3 a.m. or middle of the day or like lunch at my family's Sunday dinner, you know, where I get this random Instagram call or I open up a message from my Instagram and it's some random dude's dick. And I am like, really? People like, honestly, my first reaction is laughter because, and it's not the size that I'm laughing at or the shape or anything, but it's just like, what part of your head thinks that I'm available for you, which empowers me, you know? But also just like, you're gonna face that. One is going to face that constantly. And it does get me down, and sometimes it does hinder me from like continuing to post, but I have to remember like a picture is going to be interpreted 1,000 words, and it kind of doesn't matter if there is an essay attached to that photo because some people don't read that essay. Most people probably don't. um, and just remembering like why I'm doing this work and who my audience is, which is, it could be a man, you know, because it's for people who are wanting to empower their own sexuality. It is, I do focus myself on like femme sexuality, but anyone can look at this and take it how they want to. And I just have to remember why I'm doing it, why it feels important to me. And I do get the occasional message of someone who says, you know, and I've gotten it from men and women and, you know, gender neutral and all of the rainbow colors in between, who have said, like, you empower me, Nadia, because you're so strong that I bought my first toy, or, you know, I bought my first like sexy lingerie thing because you made me feel like I can be worth it too. Like, I know you as a regular person, and why can't I do that? And so like that's who, that's why I do it, because I love getting messages like that. This is all selfish, right? We need to work selfishly as well. But I love that people feel that way, and because it's a message I need to hear also every day. And so remembering that foundation of the why really helps me get through the literal dick and assholes that I deal with probably daily. and
Wow.
and also because I'm a human with contradictions, like we were talking, and so there is like some gray areas where like I don't mind actually, like if someone wanted to pay me because they want to see me in a certain outfit, because that to me is like, hey, I can still say no to that, and I have the power of that choice, or I have the power of choice to say yes to that. And so that to me still, me, I have the power on that. So that really helps me to like decide, like, is this okay? And then I like literally ask myself if I'm okay with it. And that yeah,
Oh, that's amazing.
that helps keeps it, my life in line with my morals, even if they change. But it is mine and not anyone else's rules. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you truly embody that authority over
it's not
yourself.
easy.
And it's,
It's not. Yeah.
oh, go into that more. Like, why isn't that easy?
Oh, because it's just like we were saying earlier too, like how social media or society or standards of society and these ideas of perfectionism. I feel like I've gained a lot of these mentalities from working in a yoga and massage studio and surrounded by really strong, amazing women. Like, this isn't me. Like, this isn't just my story. Like, there's been some really great women who, even like for what you want to do for work, like to say like, yes, this project feels good, or no, I don't feel comfortable, you know, or this rock climb or this yoga pose, you know, whatever it is, you know, take it into your own life. But some women who've really like been strong with their words, have like been strong with like how they feel about a situation as it comes, and or as they're in it. And you know, I think I believe this because I see others doing it too, and I love watching them and their experiences. But I think if you really are honest with yourself and you move through the world in that way, and there is I think I haven't figured this out, the fine line between like being selfish or being considerate or being like honest with yourself. I haven't figured that out yet. I'm just 30, but but I really do think if you move genuinely through the world in a really like comfortable place for yourself, then you'll be rewarded and the people around you will be happier because you'll be happier. Um, and and I've learned a lot of these lessons from these women, and they've helped me make it easier for the everyday. But I am still, like I said, I'm still a young woman on this path, and I think that path will change every single day, and I can't wait for it. I can, but I can't. No, I really can't wait for it. I'm not afraid of getting older. I'm so excited to be a grandma. But yeah. So just being genuine, I think, is really helpful. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I love how you mentioned the support system of the wise women around you, but you also mentioned that you had a partner. So how do they feel about how you feel and how and what you do and what you embody?
Sorry, I actually just took a bite of salsa. Oh my god, it's spicy.
Oh.
Okay. Funny. I actually love this about my partner Jamie. He's he is really cool. How we came into our relationship is different than how I've come into any other relationship, which is probably why we're married today. But from the very beginning, we were the kind of person, we loved ourselves when we're single. When, sorry, when we're single. But because like when I'm single, I'm generally like, well, maybe seemingly more outgoing because I'm actually introverted, but like I get to do what I want and when I want. I'm like really in this power state, right? No one is telling me what I can or can't do, and I love that, not having anyone telling me what I can and cannot do. And so when Jamie and I got together, we were both single and we were both very much in love with ourselves and that power of liberation. And we had that conversation very naturally as single individuals of like, why can't we stay this kind of version of ourselves? Like, why do we have to like not be this awesome? Because my friends think I'm awesome exactly as I am and I don't change for them, but why is it like for my partner I'm changing? And kind of after like and I was actually nude modeling for him because he's a sculptor, so while I'm naked having a powerful conversation. But after like a couple weeks, we kind of, it took us a couple weeks to realize that we were saying the same thing. And then somehow in this time together, we probably within like the second day of knowing each other, we immediately divulged our deepest, darkest secrets that we never told anyone. And that was a really uncomfortable conversation. Um, and then like, but we created the space for like those words and stories to be exchanged, one like without judgment or comparison or harassment or explosion of emotions really in any direction. And and because we are both very sexual people, we kind of like mentally started out as like an open relationship, but we just kept having uncomfortable but very honest conversations about our sexuality, what we wanted it to mean, are we a couple even yet, like what are the rules, because I don't feel like I want to be actually like captivated by just one person right now. This is mostly me also. I broke up with him 3 times, patient man. And I never did that to anyone before because I was so not ready to fall in love with a nice guy because I like didn't understand the benefit in that, because I was still hung up on this idea of like assholes and like false bravado. But also I was really afraid to lose myself in another relationship. But so Jamie and I really from the beginning, we had a lot of honesty. We had a lot of transparency about what we wanted, even if it wasn't standard. Um, and hearing the other person, and understanding where they were coming from. Jamie actually discovered that I was polyamorous. I didn't even know A, that word existed, or B, that it pertained to me. I didn't realize that label was mine or like a part of me. um, but like that is what I love about him, and that's what I continue to love about our relationship is that kind of constant understanding about we are also people on a journey and a path and growing and changing, and we're constantly discovering new things about ourselves that our partner may know or maybe not know, or maybe didn't realize also, just like yourself. And we create the space for that understanding. And really in our relationship, I have to say, like, sometimes the hardest conversations are the ones I really look forward to the most. And it's the ones we get to know each other deeper as people, which I think helps us get along on the day to day. But also it also helps us decide, like, hey, is this someone or something that I still want for myself? And we can make that decisions with knowing, like, there's great love, but there's also no hard feelings, which maybe makes the relationship sound like it could end at any moment, which everyone's really terrified about that too. And we're kind of like philosophical both in that way, like understanding for one reason or another, tomorrow we could maybe not be together. So we make every day, a choice of like, this is the man or this is the woman or this is like the partner I want to be with. I may be pissed right now or they're maybe annoying right now, but it's like it's just having that understanding for each other and our mood swings, that really helps us get through every day. and we do love each other, so that really helps too. But yeah, that's kind of our secret.
Oh, I love it. That presence is so powerful. Just staying in that moment and that having that understanding of the bigger
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, it's good to ask yourself, like, hey, is this what I want? Because I think it's easy to just be like, well, this is my life, and like kind of like with our bodies or like with our personalities, like, well, this is how I was raised, or this is what I look like, or this is how I eat, and like those kinds of words take power away from yourself. And it's uncomfortable to give yourself power. It's a lot of responsibility, but I think it is really rewarding in like a lot of facets of one's life. Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
wow. Oh, amazing. Okay, so we've talked about how you have got to be in so many different aspects of your life where you are right now. Um, but we didn't talk about truly right now, right now. So what do you love most about where you are in your life now?
Um, you know, this coronavirus COVID situation, I know it's really affected everyone in a lot of ways, and I'm only really speaking from my experience through this. But having this battle of being a strong female, in charge of her sexuality, but also in love with this idea of having like homemade bread and dinner on the table every night. Um, this I don't conventionally work. I work from home, and what that is that it's cooking and baking and gardening and caring for the home. And I also like manage like multiple websites too. There's like that kind of side of life, but they're passion projects, and I help my husband who's a self-employed artist, and we are artists together. And by having this virus shut down and forcing me to stay home and not like pretend that I'm looking for a job, because it was, talk about a conversation hard to have with myself. It was a scary thing to just be like, hey, I'm a stay-at-home wife and I fucking love it. Because I'm a powerful CEO of our artist farm here, like because
Yeah.
that's like, I love that females have power, and I don't want to misunderstand my story by saying I'm giving it all away, because I'm not. I'm taking it back for myself in my way. But it felt like I was misleading maybe myself or maybe other people. I'm really harsh on myself. So when I could just kind of like let it go, um, and by like just being having to be home and like having the time and the space and like finally the excuse to like make homemade sour cream, um, like raise chickens, like I love that. And it's basically what this whole conversation with you has been about, of like being honest with oneself and like honing in on the life you want, even if the whole world and society may look at you and say like, shame on you, for doing this. I'm trying to have that brain of that 70-year-old, 80-year-old, whatever grandma who's just like, I don't give a fuck, like I'm trying to put that helmet on now, because I think I'll be happier for the rest of my life, because the saying says so. So like I'm trying to just start that now, um, and and just own this. So it's hard. I cry sometimes a lot. It's not really pretty. I like yell actually at my husband because I'm like frustrated with myself for just not like letting myself do it. I mean, it kind of sounds crazy. It like it manifests itself in like arguments where I am yelling at him, but really it's all me, you know what I mean? Like, so that's where I'm at. I'm learning to be comfortable not having a regular job, but in my own way transforming that. I have goals and dreams, and I want to make money. I'm just like not really, my parents hate this, I'm just not driven by like dollar bills, I'm driven by like creativity and creation and doing, and not so much how I'm getting paid. So um, by having that space, I'm really lucky to have that space. I'm so thankful for that. But you know, I have ideas. They maybe just take longer to grow. So I'm happy to have that space and in that time in my life right now. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Very normal.
Very normal. I love it. I mean, what you just said, it's truly, like I said in the very beginning and how I introduced you, you truly embody the divine
Mm-hmm.
feminine. You have, like, if you look at, let's just say the
Mm-hmm.
goddesses, for example, you have Athena with the wisdom and Artemis with like setting the intention and like hunting down your
Yeah.
dreams. And then you have Aphrodite with like the sexual and the love and everything. And then you have Hesta,
Mm-hmm.
which is like the goddess of the home and
Yeah.
really like taking care and nurturing. I mean, it's truly the divine feminine,
Mm-hmm.
and it really is amazing. And because you embody that divine feminine so powerfully and all different aspects of it, the maiden, the mother, the crone, like you really want to be that grandma, and you already have that mindset of, which I think we all should have that mindset, like that, reality check at least once in a while of, okay, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna be this old, I'm gonna look back on my life, what do I really want
Yeah.
to
Oh my
remember?
gosh, you just kind of made me cry. That was
And
awesome.
oh yeah, but you're definitely, because you have that divine feminine so powerfully unleashed within you, and it's that creative
Mm-hmm.
energy, then you're definitely going to create everything that you want, and it's going to be so
Yeah.
beautiful.
I mean, oh, it's so scary. It's so really scary. But I really do believe, again, it might be a slower process than like getting an engineering degree or something. But like, I do believe that in the long run, I'm going to look back at my life and I will be financially okay. Like, I do trust in that, and that I will not only be financially okay, but also very like fulfilling and emotionally and spiritually and physically okay too. Because I try to do that work, you know. while also being like realistic with myself, which is very hard to do because I'm trying to not be, but I have tendencies of perfectionism. But yeah, it's so
Mm.
cool. Just the divine feminine is really powerful, and I really appreciate that comparison of all those wonderful goddesses. That's just magic. I feel so
Oh,
lucky to have those words like by that.
oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so you said you do have some future plans that you want to come to fruition. So where can people find you and keep up to date on your work now, and then see you grow into whatever you end up doing?
Yeah. So I guess the page that I manage more like a business would be my Instagram for La Femme Cat, and also my CaterinaCollective.com website. Um, those are kind of like this as far as like the female empowerment and sexuality. That's where those things and facets of my life are. Um, and also like if you are more interested in kind of like the homesteading side of it all, I have a really tiny other Instagram account and also website that I manage those more like a creative artist, so sometimes I won't post forever. The website I try to do better, but it's scenes of Nampara, like you're viewing like a scene, but scenes of Nampara, Nampara. um, and my website is nadiacaterina.com, and that website has like food recipes and kind of sometimes just like real life stories, sometimes travel stories are on the low right now obviously because no one's traveling. um, but there's kind of more of like that homesteady or just like normal life, and then some like practical recipes for dinner or whatever. um, but yeah, that's me. And that's where like my journeys will continue to be posted and shared. um yeah, that's where you can find me, out on the interwebs. Yep.
Awesome.
uh,
Okay, so I have one last question for you, and it's the question that I love asking the very most. I think it's a great question to be asked, but also for everybody listening to ask themselves as well. So the question is, who is the superhero inside of you that has all the power you could ever need?
oh, okay, my sister would hate this, um but I would have to say, in a non-conceited way, myself. um because I'm the only one who could really, and this is something my husband has really helped me to learn, but I'm the only one who could really give myself power or take power away. And I don't mean to say that sometimes people won't do shitty things to you or say, or, not that there's not outside forces, but when it comes to the choices of like how am I going to look at myself in the mirror and feel about myself, or um, you know what, I'm going to go to therapy because I want to be mentally well, or I'm going to love myself more because I want that for myself, and all of the things that I think make me strong. Again, not that I haven't been greatly, I can name a lot of inspirational women, and I probably would take a long time answering it that way. But the work comes from within. And there's this really hot fireball of a solar plexus within each and every one of us. And activating that bonfire, and when you feel it's not there, stoking that fire, that's where the power comes from. And like, this is actually why I love lingerie too, because it's generally under your clothes, right? Like your solar plexus is like inside your energetic body, but it's also something that no one else can see or touch. Um, and kind of it's something for yourself. And so it's like a secret from within, and it's where the power comes from. Like, I have this power of this sexy outfit underneath, and no one knows where my confidence is coming from because they don't know I'm wearing this like super hot leather lingerie set, but they also can't take it away because they don't know where that's located. And I think that's who I look to for my power. Looking at myself in the mirror and said, "You go fucking get it, because this is what you want," and that's it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love it so, so
But don't
much.
tell my sister because it's a conceited answer and I will be reprimanded.
That is not conceited at all. That it's true. That's true for every single one of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh man. Well, I have so much gratitude for you coming on and sharing your story
Yeah,
with
thank
us. Thank
you.
you so much. It was such an
Thank
honor.
you so much. You've really helped me feel that strength, and I'm so happy to be part of your podcast. It is so wonderful. I love that you're doing this. So many women and people really, I mean, I know we're maybe focusing on the women, but people love this and enjoy this kind of work. So thank you so much for offering it.
Oh, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope that this episode has somewhat inspired you to take control, given you the tools to feel secure and on fire in your own independence, and help to unlock within you the impact that you're here to make. You're not born with a purpose. You're born as your purpose. It's already inside of you, and it's your responsibility in this life to live that in the truest way possible. If you've gotten any sort of value out of this episode, please share it so that we can together expand our inspiration and our impact in this world.